Hi, everyone. Welcome to Chats with Dr. Gege. I have a guest with me today, my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Kizo Mrubata. Welcome, Kay.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So we call each other Kay, so feel free to do that. Like this is
Yeah.
just like how we normally chat.
Yeah, in all honesty, I only call you Kay because you call me Kay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I think it's weird that you call me Kay when your name is Kay. So then, so I just started calling you Kay back. I was hoping that you'd like catch on to how weird it was, and then we'd like just use proper names, but we never have. So then it just stuck.
Yeah, also it's how we sign off our messages, like love Kay.
I don't know. That's not how I usually sign off my messages, but I do with you.
Okay.
I do with
Cool.
you.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks, Kay.
Thanks, Kay.
All right. So, why I invited you to our chat is because of a personal journey that you are on. And I think that, when we go through experiences and we're trying to find like the meaning and how, it impacts us and how it can impact other people. So I thought that we could use your story to maybe, I don't know, help others or just raise awareness about such things. So I will let you maybe just take us back to, if it's not like sore, if it doesn't hurt.
No, it's not so. I was just like waiting for your question, like so
Yeah.
that sorry, did my
Yeah.
face do a thing? I was just like trying to think about your question,
Okay.
like as you were asking.
So my question is that you have a little one,
Yeah.
beautiful Oguhle. He's a boy, and he is dealing with a chronic condition. But I want you to just start the story. I'll in the middle go and summarize like what the condition actually is, but just take us to that morning or that night when things just went upside down, basically.
Okay, so my son Oguhle has diabetes. It's type 1 diabetes, and I think it's very important that I say it's type 1 diabetes because we all know of somebody who has diabetes, but it's most likely the type 2. And it then becomes kind of important in the management and also in taking care of somebody with type 1 diabetes. But he's 2 years old. He turned 2 last week.
Yes, November.
Yeah, the
Yay.
14th. Yeah, so he turned 2. And but before he was diagnosed in January.
Okay.
So he was around 14 months. It was actually after I think maybe the day after he was diagnosed. He was diagnosed the day after he turned 14 months.
Okay.
So yeah, he was diagnosed on the 15th of January. And and how it went down was, so I had been very, very busy. I was in the ICU. I was being the consultant there. If that means anything to you, then that means
Okay, maybe let's pause here just so that, because not I'm taking for granted that people know who you are.
Yeah.
So Giza's a pediatrician, and she's also a pulmonologist like me. And so when she's saying she was in the ICU, she was at work, working.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. So I was in the ICU and I was overseeing the ICU, and I had been doing that for the week. And typically when I'm in the ICU, I work there very long hours because the children are very sick.
Charlotte,
yeah.
Okay.
Very, very demanding. And and I hadn't really been home. Like I'd been home, but I hadn't been home. So I'd been home for bedtime and, to eat. But basically, I hadn't been home that whole weekend.
So who's with him?
So my husband was with him, and so was his aunt, my cousin.
Okay.
And so I think I had asked her to come because I just felt like he needed a little bit of respite.
Okay.
Because at the time, we had a nanny that only came in, like, we worked weekdays, and on the weekend, like, toddlers can be a handful. So my cousin offered and I accepted, and she came to help. And so he had been having the symptoms, and I think we'll go into the symptoms earlier in retro, but hindsight is always 2020. So it's easy to kind of spot now, but at the time I wasn't really clocking it.
So what is he doing? Like, what is happening?
So he was just not himself that weekend. He was on and off, and
as in irritable,
he was,
or sleepy, or
he was just not as energetic as he usually is. But he didn't have a fever. He wasn't coughing. He wasn't necessarily lethargic, and then he'd also, like toddlers do, have these like bursts of energy where he's absolutely fine, and that would be the time when I would come home. He would be absolutely fine.
Okay.
But the one thing that I did notice was that he would have these times where he was breathing faster than others.
Okay.
And I initially thought that, could this be a pneumonia? Because, my mind immediately goes to, like, respiratory or, like, lung-related issues. But what was against that for me was the fact that when he slept, it went away.
Okay.
So, and then also I checked his sats. I did.
Okay. So you felt something is a bit off.
Something was off.
But I don't know what.
But I couldn't put my finger on it.
And he's not drinking a lot of water, or
he's drinking a lot of
more.
He's drinking a lot of water, but not more than he usually does.
Okay.
Yeah. So he drank a lot of water, and for a 1 year old, but also just for a person, right? But as it was happening, it also happened to be very hot.
Okay.
And so it was kind of easy to, diffuse into the context that we were in. He would ask for water when it was hot, and then he would then urinate a lot because he drank a lot of water.
Okay.
So it was very hard to kind of piece the two together. And then the other thing that a lot of diabetic kids and parents will usually complain about in the future, well, in life, is the fact that they will pee through their nappies. So he would urinate so much that he'd pee through his nappy almost every night.
So he was leaking at night.
He was literally leaking. Like it would not be able to contain his pee.
And was this a new thing from that weekend, or it had been happening?
No, it had been happening for like a couple of months, to the point where I think that weekend I had changed brands because I thought, these cheap nappies, and I suppose when you piece it all together, you're like, okay, it's the symptoms of these are all the symptoms of diabetes. But so on the Sunday, I got a call from my husband to be like, he's not okay. And I was like, what do you mean he's not okay? And he's like, I just can't, I don't know what, but he's not okay, And I was like, okay, send me a video. Because that's what I do. Like, if I'm in the ICU and someone is telling me about a child and I can't picture what they're talking about, I always tell them to send me a video. So then I did that with him as well. I was like, send me a video. And then he sent me a video. And in the video, I could see what he meant. He was very clingy. He was very, but he wasn't quite lethargic. He wasn't overtly sick. He wasn't dehydrated. He didn't look dehydrated. He didn't look particularly sick, but he was just off. And I thought, okay,
a bit miserable.
Yeah. And I thought, okay, maybe he misses me, right? Because I haven't been there. But in all honesty, he's with his favorite people. He's with his aunt. His grandmother, I think, also came to visit, because I think my husband was worried. So he called his mom, and his mom is she's a retired matron. So I think he just wanted eyes.
More eyes. Yeah.
He wanted eyes, and then and then she came, and she also was just like, he's not himself. But no one could put a finger on what was going on. And then after I saw the video, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna do for him what I do for every other child. I'm gonna take his bloods, right? I'm gonna send him for an X-ray, and I'm gonna take his bloods, because this is what I would do for any other child.
I want us to pause here because I have one video on danger signs and when to take your child to get seen. Yeah. And I think that we need to recognize and acknowledge that sixth sense that parents have when your child is just not themselves. You know your child. No one knows your child more than you. And I think I want us to give credit to parents and to give them the power to say, that when your gut says there's something wrong with my child, go
There's
with
something
it.
wrong with your
And
child,
to say
yeah.
that we also as healthcare workers, we will take that. You know, like I'll never dismiss a mom or a dad who's like, you know, doc, I don't know, but
There's
something is not
something
right.
off,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
so I just want to say that we know, but it's
Yeah.
good that you listened to his
Yeah.
dad and that you
Yeah.
also felt we need to check.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
So
yeah,
you now want to do bloods.
So then now I do bloods, and I think.
So wait, does he come to the hospital to you, or what
No,
happens?
I went past the lab. I grabbed the stuff. No, but I don't know. I think it's also just because I'm hyper independent.
Yeah, you're a little bit
To
of
a
a.
fault.
I guess if you're a MacGyver or a Sylvester Stallone, like you're
I
going to
don't
prick your own baby.
So I don't know. I just feel like it's better coming from me than a stranger.
Really?
Like in his ped. Yeah.
Okay.
And also because like I trust myself. Like I
Okay.
know I'm gonna get this blood. What if I
Okay.
take him to the
Someone
lab
else and they don't
and
prick
then
him
they
right.
don't prick him right? Right?
Okay.
But I don't know. It's very weird. Like I mean, even his immunizations, I do his immunizations.
Oh, I was not aware of this. Okay, man, like, we'll have an intervention outside of here about this, but okay. Okay, doctor.
I don't know what it is. I can't explain it.
Okay.
But yeah, but anyways, and it also plays into the story, right?
Okay.
So I do his bloods, and then I also discuss with a friend who's a pediatrician. Because I never want to assume that I know everything.
So you just do a general screen.
I do just a basic
Okay.
septic workup, and then I also take him for an X-ray, and then I look at the X-ray and I'm like, this looks like this might be a pneumonia. I run it past my HOD at the time, and then he's also like, might be something on the right there. And then I'm like, fine, let's prescribe an antibiotic. We'll go see the ped right tomorrow.
I just have to say though, like for me,
It's crazy.
It's not crazy, but I just think this is why we shouldn't assess our own children.
Yes.
Yeah. Like I just think it's blurry there, friend. Like
it is. But anyways.
Okay.
So I'm waiting for these results to come back, and then the septic markers are fine, and at this point he's fine. He's running around. He's but in retrospect he had, I think it was the times during which he'd become hydrated. So when he would hydrate, he'd be fine, and then when he would dehydrate, like pee it all out, then he would be lethargic again. And but fortunately he never got that so dehydrated that it was kind of an alarm. But anyways, so then the results come back, and one of them is very funny. So it just shows that there's an acidosis in his blood.
Okay, so you check everything.
Yeah.
All right.
UNE, just a UNE.
Yeah.
And the bicarb is low. I can't remember what it was. I want to say 7.
Okay.
And I was just like, why is he acidotic? And also now it goes back to the fast
put it all
breathing.
together.
I'm like, he's breathing fast and he's acidotic. I'm like, it's a real acidosis. So I need to take him for further testing. Like we need a gas. And then I call his pediatrician, and this is after I call 2 friends of mine who are both pediatricians. One is a nephrologist, the other one is a general pediatrician who I really, really trust and love. And they were both like, no, go with your gut, take him tonight, right? Because at this time, if you look at this guy, he's running around, he looks fine. But I was like, I can't sleep. I can't sleep with this. So then I'm thinking at this time, like my mind is just racing. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, is his kidneys? What's going on? And then I pack a bag, and I pack a bag to stay, because I'm like, I'm not coming back without a diagnosis.
So you pack your own clothes as well?
I pack my own clothes. I pack his clothes. I'm like, we're sleeping.
At the hospital?
We're sleeping at the hospital, yes.
Wow.
I was determined. I was like, now I know that there's something wrong, right? And I'm not comfortable coming back. Regardless of what that gas shows, I'm not comfortable coming back until I know that we've got a diagnosis.
Okay, so just for our non-medic friends and viewers, when she's talking about a gas, she's referring to a certain blood test that you do where they take blood from a person and then they put it in a machine, and it gives you results like immediately, but it kind of tells us what the acid base level of a person is sitting at.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what the cause might be.
Mm-hmm.
So then on the way to the hospital, he just becomes weaker and weaker. But it's also strange because it's ambiguous because it's also bedtime.
Okay.
Right? But in any case, but I can feel him, and then I feel his feet, and his feet are cold. And I'm like, oh my goodness, he's becoming shocked.
Really?
Yeah.
But he didn't actually have signs of real dehydration.
He was, I think he was mainly intravascularly depleted because when I looked at his eyes, they were still glassy. To be honest, I didn't really check out at that moment in time. I didn't check out like his lips.
Does he have saliva?
Does he have saliva?
this?
Does he?
Okay,
Because he
yeah.
was also sleeping, but I felt him sort of slump into me because he was sitting on me in the back seat because it was around bedtime, so he was a bit niggly. He didn't want to go into the car seat, so I was like, okay, fine, I'll hold him. I'll sit in the back, and then my husband was driving, and then I had called his ped, and it was at Santa Mediclinic. And she said, look, I'm not on call, but there's the pediatrician who is on call is actually on the premises.
Okay, so.
And this is somebody who I had trained with.
Okay.
So I had her number,
Yeah.
and then I called her ahead, and I was like, look, I think he's going into shock. And then she was like, great, we'll meet you in casualty.
So how are you feeling at this point when your child's feet are going cold?
I think I'm still in doctor mode.
Okay.
I think I'm just like trying to get it done. Like I'm trying to...
Yeah, you were able to actually...
I was able to compartmentalize and...
Okay.
And and I think just to backtrack. So when I was speaking to my friend about this, and she was just like, actually, you need to stop this. Stop doctoring your baby. Call your ped. And I was like, actually, you know what, you're right. I'm not alone, and I'm acting like I am.
Yes.
Like I have so many resources available to me, but I think it's just like that thing of maybe it's the way we were trained as well. You know, you're kind of trained to be you are it. You know. But anyways, so then we get to the hospital, and then they take him and they do the gas, and then his sugar is very high on the gas. It's 30. So normal sugar is like 8, right? And his is 30. And he is acidotic on the gas, like his acid level is very high. And then it actually turns out he had a diabetic emergency. Yeah. And then also at that time, his pediatrician couldn't help herself. She also came through.
Okay.
And but like at that point everything was under control.
Okay.
And then
they were able to drip him.
He was already dripped, like they already had it.
Yeah.
But I think she's also she's very OCD, like you and me. I know you don't think you're OCD,
Yes.
but you are.
As like you are. Yeah, that's fine.
So she came to come check, even though she had said, look, I'm not on call, but she was there.
This is the one who was not on call.
She was not on call. She was not on call, but she came.
Okay.
Because I think I told her the story over the phone that like, look, this is what happened. This is the UNE. This is, and I'm coming. And she said, look, I'm not on call, and then she was like, do you think he needs ICU? And initially I'd said, look, I think let's just see what the gas looks like, because I mean he was bouncing around at the time. But when it was time to leave, and like now I wasn't sure, are you drowsy because of bedtime, or are you drowsy because you're sick? Then I called her back and I was like, I think prepare an ICU bed. Or rather I called the other pediatrician, the one who was on site, and I told her to prepare an ICU bed. But anyways, she also came. And then, but
so
at
this
that time,
baby surrounded by 3 pediatricians.
Surrounded by 3 pediatricians.
Okay.
And then was diagnosed, and we were like, okay, has diabetes.
Is that your alarm?
It's his alarm, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
We'll tell the people about it, but it's just checking. Right?
No, it's his alarm, but I know not to get alarmed.
Okay.
Yeah, I know the alarm tones at this point.
Okay.
But yeah, anyways, so then he was diagnosed with diabetes, and I remember my first thought being relief.
Because of that,
because there's a diagnosis.
there's a diagnosis of this serious
Yes,
situation.
of whatever this
now.
is. I'm like, whew.
Okay, now we know.
We have an answer, you know, because like what I was dreading going to the hospital was things hanging in the air. You don't know, because there's nothing worse, I think, as a doctor than not being able to tell your patient what's wrong with them,
Yeah.
because they don't have an answer. They can't prepare. They don't know who do they what do they research, what do they say, and then everything is just like in the air. And
Yeah.
I know I hate that for my patients, so I know that I would hate that for myself.
And I also know what we do as doctors or as people is think of the worst things and then work our way down, right? Because you don't want to miss the worst thing. So I mean, I don't even want to know. We don't have to go there like where your mind first went and then what's coming back down to.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, my mind immediately went to kidney failure, and I was like, it's going to be on
kidney
dialysis.
failure from what?
It's going to be on
to give him a
dialysis
kidney,
forever.
but I can't. Oh no!
I was just like, oh my goodness, and kidney kids are so sick.
Like some
That's
congenital
why
kidney abnormality.
Yes, I was like, this is why I'm not a nephrologist, because those kids are heartbreaking, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, it's kidneys. So then when it came back and it was diabetes, I was like, this I can deal with.
Okay.
I can do this. Like, it's hard, but I can do diabetes over kidneys. So and then we stayed in the hospital for 3 days, and then we went home.
Okay, and those 3 days, I mean, how were they for you?
They were sad in the sense that, you know, you don't want to see your baby in an ICU and just like sick. Because I think also it gave him a chance to really collapse.
Okay, once he actually got the help, his system was like...
His system was just like...
We've been
I was like,
on.
oh my goodness. Like I think his adrenaline had been on 10 and he had been fighting to survive. And then when we gave him the help, he was just like, whoo, and he was just passed out. And I was actually grateful for him being passed out, because then he didn't get to kind of experience the drips that much and stuff like that. And like the pricking, because they have to be pricked every hour.
I think when you told me...
Every hour. Yeah.
Like, that's all I thought. Like, okay, Oguhle has diabetes. Like, what? Also, he's so young. Like, you know. But I was just like, Nana, like, finger pricks, HGTs. That's just the thought that, I was just like, oh no, not, like, what? Adults struggle. I'm afraid of needles. You know?
Oh, really?
Yeah, like, I deal with them. I'll donate blood and things, but I do a little jiggle before they put it in. So
I think I've taken my own bloods once.
Really?
But I'm just a weirdo.
You really? No, oh, Rambo. Yeah, Rambo, that's the one. You really are, actually. You put yourself.
I don't know what the thing was, but I needed to take bloods and there was no one available, and so then I just put a gel coat in and I collected my own bloods.
Definitely Rambo.
I don't know what,
I think for me that's the hardest, and
and
I'm like that even with my own patients when they need drips and stuff. Like, I try to just get it in the first time, because I feel like it's sore, and we underestimate how sore it is, you know.
It's sore. You know what I will say about Ogusha's experience is that, like, it's heightened that for me. I try and minimize pain as much as possible. Not that I didn't before, but now I think I'm just like hypersensitive around it. And I'll try by all means to, if I think that a child is going to need a drip for longer than 3-4 days, I'll try and get them something, you know, that has longevity, so that they're not pricked all the time. If I suspect I'm going to be taking bloods, it's also just like a medium alarm. If I suspect that I'm going to be needing to take bloods on more than 3 occasions, I also try and do that. Like, I try and put something semi-permanent in, or like, you know, that has longevity in, because I'm so hyper aware of just how traumatic a single hospitalization episode can be. Because even after that, he was so traumatized, and I could tell that he was traumatized, because I imagine, like, you lose autonomy over your whole body, and you just basically have people coming in and, dripping you or pricking you, and fortunately, I think there's something to be said about parents being there and me being there that kind of gave him the assurance that, like, they're helping me.
Whatever's happening here is
They're helping
not
me.
to hurt
Yeah,
you.
yeah, because he wasn't fighting and he didn't pull out his drips. I mean, the same drips that we came in, we went out with.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but I think it made a few things important to me. Like, firstly, parents being there. I think we really underestimate the power of, us as parents being
At
there
the
when our kids are
bedside.
sick. And then the other thing is just like what just hospitalization does to children. Yeah.
Okay. So take me through, if you did have this journey, Rambo, I don't know.
My word.
Was there like a grieving process? Was there like, did you go through stages of acceptance?
Yeah.
Was there,
Oh yeah.
was it in that week, or was it even weeks or months later? Like,
I think I like cried for 2 weeks straight because I was just like, oh my goodness, But I sort of snapped out of it when I saw him. And he was dealing with it. Like, he was, sure enough, like, he hated the pricks and he hated the in-between stuff. Because at that point, thankfully, and this also ties into what I'm about to say, we had gotten a sensor. So the sensor, that's the alert that keeps going off now, or that's gone off a couple of times. It's basically a device that we put onto his arm now, but you can put it anywhere where there is like fatty tissues. People put it on the abdomen, some put it on their thighs, on their boob even, and it basically just measures the amount of glucose that's in the fluid surrounding your cells at any given time. And then they found that it's actually quite an accurate idea, or it gives an accurate depiction of the glucose that's in your blood. And like this particular sensor that we use, I don't know, can I say the name or?
Oh, it's up to you. Is it a particular brand?
Yeah, it's a particular brand.
I think it's fine if it's so great.
It's called the Dexcom, and it's very, very accurate. Like it basically, every time we compare the finger prick to the Dexcom, it's almost always the same or off by like 0.1 or 0.2 points, So those sort of things make it very easy for us to keep track of his sugar levels without needing to prick him all the time. So, things like that, like not needing to prick him all the time. For instance, that made things so much easier. And that was also part of the one of the things that helped snap me out of my like depression or like sadness around it. I was like, we're so privileged because there's so many families that like they have children that are younger than him and they have to prick those kids all the time. And so it was that. It was also just the fact that he was like, he didn't let it didn't define him. He was still Ogushe. We had to prick him for meals and whatever, but outside of that, he was still great. And then also the other thing was like I saw him.
Let's pick up off where, you don't have to go deep in it, but I just want you to expand a little bit on that 2 weeks of grieving or sadness. What do you think it was that was making you so sad? I mean, there is the element of, oh gosh, causing my child pain, we have to prick him. But what else? I'm just thinking, because I know for myself what I could have been thinking, but I'm just curious with you, what was weighing so heavily on you, or what were the questions you were asking God, or I don't know?
I think it was just mainly... you don't want your child to ever suffer. And I think that was the main thing. It was just like, oh my goodness, he's going to need these needles forever and he's going to suffer, whether it be in a small way or in a big way. And that was my main thing. That was my main thing. I just didn't want him to be in any pain. And I think up until that point, he had been in so much pain. Like the past 3 days were just basically pain, pain, pain. And then I was like, oh my goodness, is this going to be his life? And then also, at that time, I think I was also coming from a point of lots of ignorance around, like, I mean, as a pediatrician, it's surprising, but I was super ignorant about the possibilities, and I was super ignorant about, the treatments that exist, and just the kind of a life that a child with diabetes can lead.
Yeah, and I'm going to interrupt you there, just to move us away from the sadness a little bit.
Yeah.
To say, I understand why it could feel that way, because the reality for our patients in state is the hard version of type 1 diabetes, and maybe we can paint a picture. I think you're probably better suited to just paint a picture of what having diabetes could look like for a child in Dobsonville. A 2-year-old in Dobsonville who is now diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, coming for follow-ups at Bar. Like, what happens at home?
Yeah, so, my goodness, I think that was, I think you nailed it in the sense that was my reference, right? It was just basically seeing these malnourished kids that are always in hospital, like always having diabetic emergencies. I don't know, I had never, up until that point, met a child with diabetes who was managed well in the home, who was growing well, who either didn't have or didn't run the risk of complications later on in their lives. So that was my reference point. So when we got diagnosed, I was like, oh my goodness, like, is this what's gonna happen? And because I thought that was a trajectory for all children, particularly that age, And so I was super sad because of that. I was like, oh my goodness, does this mean also his life is going to be cut short? And but I suppose, like, with education and with also just like learning so many other things, and thank goodness for all these resources, like COVID did what it did, but it also brought the world so much closer. And one of the things that it helped me with personally or us all with, is just like having access to different resources that we otherwise might not have had, like the resources that I use, that I rely on, are mainly this podcast called Juicebox, which is just incredible. It's this guy with a child, I think his daughter is 19, and she was diagnosed at 2 years old, and he basically has put everything that he knows onto this podcast. Like the silly things, lollipops. He even will invite people to speak about different things. Like,
so can children with diabetes have lollipops?
They can have lollipops.
I see.
And they can eat whatever they want. Like, it's up to you. Like, you need to choose. You get to choose as a parent. Like, how are you going to manage the diabetes? But I think up until that point, I thought I was restricted. Like, I thought, oh my goodness, he's going to have those disgusting sweets that aren't real sweets, and he's never going to have ice cream, and he's never going to have candy floss. He's going to have boring, and because his 1-year party was like a carnival, like his aunt went crazy. And I thought, we can never do that again, And one of the things that she said was like, does this mean I can never take him out for his first tequila, like things like that. We were just like so sad. And then
sad that my child will never drink alcohol.
We'll never be able. We never have the choice. We'll never have the choice.
Okay, the choice.
Yeah, but and then with this podcast, like, he'll invite people who drink and have diabetes to teach people how to do it safely. Like, what are the dangers? Because in all honesty, lots of diabetic kids, teenagers, are going to do this anyway. So his point is like, I need to make it safe. Like, so how he kind of describes it is that, like, he's building a time capsule so that when his daughter, who's a teenager now, 20 years from now, when she's 18, when she's 19, when she's 20, when she's 30, when she's 40, when she's 50, when she's 60, when she's 70, when she's 80, when she's 90, when she's 100, when she's 200, when she's 300, when she's 400, when she's 500, when she's 600, when she's 700, when she's 800, when she's 900, when she's 1000, when she's 1,000, when she's 2,000, when she's 3,000, when she's 4,000, when she's 5,000, when she's 6,000, when she's 7,000, when she's 8,000, when she's 9,000, when she's 10,000, when she's 11,000, when she's 12,000, when she's 13,000, when she's 14,000, when she's 15,000, when she's 16,000, when she's 17,000, when she's 18,000, when she's 19,000, when she's 20,000, when she's 21,000, when she's 22,000, when she's 23,000, when she's 24, decides to take an interest in this disease, all this information is there for her.
Because right now he's still doing
Because
everything.
right now he's still doing everything, and
okay.
she's still a teenager.
Yeah.
You know, she's still like,
Ish.
Dad does everything. Like, I just
Yeah.
text him and he does everything. But he's just like, you know, God forbid something happens to me and I die with all this information. And
Yeah.
so that was a lifeline. And then they these Facebook groups. I'm back on Facebook now, which I haven't been in a long time. And it's Facebook groups. One of them is called Diapers and Diabetes, and it's basically just dealing with like children.
Just say that again.
Diapers and diabetes.
Diapers and diabetes.
Yeah,
okay.
so toddlers, you get 9-month-olds with diabetes, and we basically just like share ideas, like as in, okay, because you know toddlers aren't, I don't know, they're not human in my world. Like they just like they do their own thing, and then now what do you do if your toddler doesn't want to eat? You know, your toddler with diabetes doesn't want to eat. Or what do you do around meal times? Like, you know, if you're an adult, I'd say, okay, you inject and you wait 15 minutes. Which toddler's gonna wait 15 minutes, or 10 minutes? How do you navigate those kind of things? And these groups are just like they've just become a lifeline. And also just seeing these kids, like for instance, this the Juice Box podcast host. His daughter is grown and she has no complications and her sugars are near perfect, like, and just sort of seeing those examples and being like, this is actually not a death sentence.
It's just, it can be another chronic condition.
It can be another chronic condition, and it doesn't have to be a chronic condition that is necessarily comes with complications.
Yeah.
Because that was also what I thought. I was like, okay, if he lives to be an adult, you know, he's gonna have some kind of complications, and more it's proving that with AI, with education, with research, with the technologies that are available, that doesn't have to be the case.
But I want to bring us back to, so just two things before I forget, because you talk so much, my friend.
Sorry.
It's great though. I want us to talk about the South African reality, because you're supposed to keep insulin in the fridge, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to just touch on that and talk about the impact of load shedding, if there is. And then I'll ask you to just talk us through like a typical weekday in the life of Ogutle from morning till bedtime, and in relation to his diabetes.
Okay.
But so let's just talk about the reality of most people in our country who would have to prick their child, check the glucose level, and give an injection, one in the morning, one at night, and maybe other times in the day, depending on what the reading shows.
Yeah.
What do you think? Does load shedding have an impact on that, or?
So, I think I can only speak from, I don't know, from patient experiences, and then also from assumption, right? And also just a little bit of what we went through maybe at the beginning before we got our pump. So, in terms of load shedding, so insulin is actually quite robust. So it can be.
What do you mean by robust?
Like it can be, you can leave it at room temperature.
Okay.
It just mustn't get too hot or it mustn't freeze.
Okay.
Right.
So you're saying it's strong.
It's very strong.
Okay.
You can put it on the. A lot of our people like banalisamente or they have tiles. If you put it on the tile, or you put it like at room as long as it doesn't get too hot, it's fine.
Okay.
So I don't know if load shedding will play such a huge role, because like you can leave your insulin out.
Okay.
The only option, the only problem I get is when there's extreme heat and extreme cold. And then one of the things that you look at is you look at the cloudiness, so the see-throughness of the insulin. The minute it becomes cloudy, that means that it's probably defective, right? But if it's see-through, then it probably works.
Okay.
Yeah, and especially if you haven't like put it in front of a heater, or it wasn't a particularly hot day and you left it out in the sun, you know. But it's very robust.
Okay.
And I think they've changed the way it is, because I do remember there was a time where we had to be very strict about, but I think maybe they found ways of preserving it such that it's not. But then also I'm speaking about the kind of insulin that we use, right? And also from yeah, but I think it's most of them. I stand to be corrected. Endocrinologists, please don't come for me. But but that's what I know about it. And then just the the difference between us and our patients, I think, is mainly going to be the monitoring. So, and also the doses. So because I am a pediatrician and because I'm his mom, I am more knowledgeable about things like how to get the dose
to be precise. Okay, that's fine. So we won't get too technical.
Yeah.
So maybe just.
But for the average patient, they'd be given a dose, right? And because it's not safe for you, or we don't know how safe it's going to be for you to perhaps dilute that dose to something smaller, we're kind of forced to give your child something a little bit more than they might need, meaning that they're probably going to need to feed the insulin. So they're going to need more glucose or more sugar or more carbs throughout the day than the average person, or a person who, like us, who can get it down to a lower dose, because these are small people. So they may not necessarily need one unit. But if our pens that the government provides for us only, like, the minimum is 1 unit, that's what you're getting. And then that means that you run the risk of going very low.
And the only thing more dangerous than hyperglycemia is hypo.
Yeah, I read somewhere that diabetes is the only disease where your treatment can kill you as well. And I think that's the problem with our kids, particularly the ones that are so small, is that, like, we have to find a way of titrating getting, like, very, very small doses to them. And I think it's very possible. I just don't think that it is in the interest of many people. And unfortunately, it's like one of those things where, because people don't stand to gain from it, nobody's really going to invest in it.
Yeah, that's a whole other topic though, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you can take us through
a
day in the life. So he's 2 now.
Okay, so he's 2 now, and he's saying no to everything. And he doesn't want to eat.
Okay.
And sometimes he does want to eat.
Okay.
But it's sporadic. And then chips are his favorite thing, then they're not.
Simba chips, or like...
Simba chips, slap chips.
Okay.
He had a slap chip phase. He's over it now.
Okay.
So, so just as a background, he eats everything.
Okay.
And I just basically give him the insulin for whatever it is that he eats, because he's growing and
so when you say he eats everything, you're saying he's not on a diabetic diet. We don't for you guys, there's no such. Diet. Okay.
No. So we wake up in the morning and we would have tracked his sugars overnight. So, or rather, the app would have for us. So I set alarms for when he's high, I set alarms for when he's low.
So the app is connected to the sensor that is on his body, whether it's his arm or tummy, but currently it's on his arm.
It's on his arm, yeah.
Okay.
And then the phone will alarm.
Sorry, does the sensor have a needle, or it's...
Yes, so how the sensor works is that it has a needle in it, and then it basically, when you deploy it it comes in an encased device, and then once you've deployed it, it goes into the skin, and then there's a sticker that goes around it, and that basically keeps it on his body.
How long can it stay there for?
10 days.
Okay.
So we have to change it every 10 days. Sometimes it's sooner. It just depends.
Does it hurt when you deploy?
Yeah, it hurts when it goes in, but sadly he's gotten used to it.
Okay.
So it doesn't hurt as much. At the beginning it was like a fight, but now it's like, we have games and songs around it.
Oh.
Yeah. So what was I gonna say? So the sensor would have picked up whether or not he's high or he's low, and I would have dealt with it. Thankfully, how we're managing it is by we're using a pump, and how the pump works is that it sort of talks to the sensor. So if, for instance, his sugars are going low, the pump will give him less insulin, and sometimes
So
none.
maybe explain the pump to us or to me as if I'm
Okay.
not a medic. So
Okay.
what is it and what's in it?
So a pump is like, our pump is like a small device that has insulin inside it, and then the insulin gets delivered to him by way of a tube, right?
Okay.
And then the tube is connected to a needle that goes on his body,
Okay.
and it basically will deliver insulin however much he needs. And the advantages of a pump is it can give him very low doses, so it can give him 0.1 units, you know, which goes back to the point that, like, our patients in state,
You
if
can't
you
do
need
that.
0.1, you know, you can't really get that. But anyways, so it will give him however much he needs, and then it speaks to the sensor. So if, for instance, he is going low, then it will either stop giving him insulin altogether, or it will give him very low amounts, kind of giving him time to recover. So that's the great thing about it, because the issue with the other insulin regimen is that once your insulin is in there, it's in there. You know, you can't take it away. You have to basically eat until you normalize.
So all of this that you're saying, I mean, initially you didn't know about it and now you know about it, is from your own research, or you went to an endocrinologist? And an endocrinologist is a pediatrician for children who specializing in conditions that have to do with hormones in the body. So you had to find one.
Yes. So you automatically refer to an endocrinologist when your child is diagnosed with diabetes, because I know general pediatricians are generally not comfortable looking after children with diabetes, and also it just helps the journey with the medical aids be that much smoother, because they already have the structures in place.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they will prescribe the pump and the sensors and that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So yeah, it's been a mix. So it's been some information from my endocrinologist, but largely, honestly, this podcast, like, and also the resources that are linked to it, because he'll invite different professors and different people, and then I will actually go and look up these people and their lectures and whatever.
So let's start from here. Please, can you tell us about the sensor, and then it's linked to an app that you then have on your phone and his dad's phone. So if his sugar's low, an alarm will go off. Okay, so when the alarm goes off, you open the app, and then you can read the numbers of the app. And then do you tell the pump what to do, or do you then feed him something, or?
So the pump is also a what do you call it? Receiver, right? So all of these things are receivers. You have the sensor, which is a transmitter, and then the receivers receive the message from whatever it's sending, and it uses Bluetooth. So the pump itself can get readings. So then technology is actually quite amazing. So it will be like, before we even know that he is low, the pump will know that he's low, and the pump will stop delivering insulin. And then it also works in the opposite way. When he's starting to go high, the pump is designed to give him more insulin to bring him down. All of these things, yeah. So that's the pump, and then the app is also a receiver. So with the app, it lets us know whether we're high or low, and it's mainly for us, so that we know what's going on.
So you know what's going on.
Yeah, and then we follow his app using another app. And so from wherever he is, provided his phone is within 6 meters of him, I will always know what his sugars are, if things are working properly. But obviously, if he's in an area with bad reception, or I'm in an area with bad reception, or if the app, because these apps sometimes just like give out, but for the most part, 80% of the time, I know exactly what his sugars are.
And so if he's at school, does that mean, I'm assuming the phone is with the teacher, or is And then does she have to make sure she's always 6 meters away from him?
Yeah, so she does. We don't. He doesn't have to be 6 meters. It doesn't have to be within 6 meters at all times.
Okay.
Because my logic is, if he was a child in state, we would only know what his sugars were before
Every
he
3 hours or before he eats, yeah.
So so the same
Okay.
applies for us, right? Obviously, like, as far as possible, he had the phone around him. But I also get that he's a 2-year-old. He's gonna go running around, and so we don't just rely on the devices. We also look at him. And he's also really gotten smart. He's very attuned to his body. So sometimes he'll go, juice, juice, before we even know that he's low.
Okay.
You know, and now we've actually made the juice a bit more accessible. We put it at the bottom in the pantry, so he can sometimes get to it. And he'll either be thirsty because he's high, or he'll be, and because that's the risk, or he'll actually need the juice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right.
You want me to carry another day in the life, or are you good?
It sounds like what I'm gathering, if I can summarize it, there's the sensor, there's the pump, and then there's his normal meals. And there may need to be adjustments in the meals sometimes, depending on if he, like, if you're saying if he doesn't want to eat, or if he's low.
So I think that's when, like, diabetes, the diagnosis becomes key, right? Is the sense that, and it's something that I only learned after having a child with diabetes, is that they need insulin for every food, not just things with sugar.
Yes.
All of it. So if you don't, and the insulin that the pump is designed to deliver, or the one that you program to deliver, is the one that holds the sugar in between meals. But with meals, he needs more insulin, right? Which is different to the type 2s, who they don't really need to inject, or they don't really need treatment before meals, because their bodies can handle that. So then what makes it super tricky with a toddler is the fact that because he's unpredictable, you have to either give him, so what we do now is we give him, like, let's say for instance, we know that he will at least eat a quarter of that plate. Then we give him enough insulin for a quarter of the plate. And then when he shows enthusiasm, we give him the rest.
Okay, so the pump can respond to the sensor, but there's also some proactive giving on insulin that you have to do depending on what he's going to eat.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
I get it.
And then also the other thing that I thought about the pump, which is wrong, is that, like, it was going to just, like, change our life forever. Like, I thought, oh, we're going to pop this thing on and
that's it.
That's it. No.
Okay.
It takes a lot of work to get the settings right. And then even after you've done the work, there's still more work that goes into it, because he's growing.
So things keep changing.
So things keep changing. So you have to. So one of the things I had to learn was how to be dynamic and how to be fluid.
Oof, you.
Yeah, it was.
I'm teasing you.
Yeah, no, but I know this about myself. I can be very rigid and I can be very, like. But I had to learn to go with the flow. Like, today he needs more insulin. Who cares why? He does.
Give it.
Just give it. Yeah.
Not be like, but this is how we.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That's how I was at the beginning.
Yeah.
It drove me crazy, and I was just like, actually, again, this podcast. He was just like, who cares?
How did you find the podcast again?
How did I find this podcast? I think it was a friend who's also a pediatrician, whose son also got diagnosed.
Okay.
A month before my son.
Sure.
Yeah, and she literally gave me all the resources. She's actually the reason that we are using the pump that we're using, because she was like, my son is on this pump. Do you want me to get you in touch with the rep? And I was like, yes. And, like, through my tears, I was like talking to the rep. So, like, yeah. So she
hooked you up.
So
again, highlighting the importance of community, hey? I think community for anything, and maybe something for us as healthcare workers to just consider for all chronic conditions or anything that's sort of gonna change people's lives, is to put them in touch with other people going through the same thing. Tell me about family dynamics, and I don't know. I mean, there's all different types of chronic conditions, but how did it do anything to your marriage? Did it do anything to your relationships with like your extended family?
Mm.
Did anything change? Did you guys get closer? Did you guys go through some things?
I think it definitely made us a team.
Mm.
We're definitely more of a team now. Like we were a team, but we had lots of independent. Like I'm a very independent person.
So the team is, are we talking about mom and dad here?
Yeah, we're talking about
Okay.
mom and dad. Like we're definitely more of a team because we have to be. We have to be on the same page all the time. We have to know what's going on. He has to know what's going on. I have to know what's going on. I think more than anybody else because I'm a control freak. But we're definitely like we're in this. We're just like we're getting it. We're doing it.
And have you learned to sort of lean on someone else a bit more?
I've had to.
Because you can't be everything and be everywhere.
Can't be everywhere, can't do everything. So I've had to trust him more and I've had to trust people more. My extended family's been amazing. Like, I think it's sucked, but it's really brought us all closer together. Yeah.
But you can see how it can end some marriages.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if you're not sleeping because this alarm is going off and like you were supposed to and where's so they definitely, like, I'm not gonna say it's been all roses. There's definitely been those hard times where you just like you're both frustrated and you're angry, but I think for the most part I would say in aggregate it really has made us like more of a tighter unit, like, and across the board, like with the family, everybody.
So there's no like, okay, from midnight to 5 dimadi alarm, like
No,
really.
no.
But because are people who don't have sensors and pumps waking up at 2 a.m. to prick
They
babies?
are.
Really?
They are. They have to.
24/7.
You have to wake up at 2 to prick. Like I was speaking to one of the nurses, is in that where at the hospital where I work in Vogel is also diabetic, and I don't know how it came up, but like I told her that my son is diabetic, and then she was telling me, and then she was just like, oh my goodness, I don't know how you do it. Like I have to wake up at 2 and like prick myself, and then she's just like, and sometimes like but she's gotten so in touch with it, I think because she's had it since she was 12 and she's now in her 30s, and she's just like, sometimes like I can literally feel like I'm dying, like I feel like I'm dying, and then I check my sugars and it's 2.
In her sleep, she feels like she's dying.
She feels like she's dying.
She's having a dream when she's walking
she's
to the
just
light.
like, she's just like, and then I get up and
Really?
yeah. But I was actually, I don't want to give myself too much rough, but I was able to help her in her big age. Yeah.
No.
Tips.
I mean, props to you, I think. We don't know why these things happen, but I definitely believe that God doesn't give us things that we can't handle. And so if he had to pick a family for this little boy with diabetes, you were going to be his mom. Yeah. And I think you're doing very well. So I have learned a lot from you, not just in terms of how you manage diabetes, but just how you handle like a life-altering thing that can affect your child, because those guys are so important to us. So I just wanted to commend you for that and to thank you for being able to come talk with us about it. I didn't think it was going to be an easy conversation. I even forgot to bring the tissues, but all done.
Thank you.
They didn't drop.
I'm actually I'm very impressed with myself. I thought I'd be a puddle. Like I literally thought, oh my God.
No, you've done well. And then just for everyone else, maybe if you can list some of the helpful resources again. So it's Diapers and Diabetes.
Yeah, the
Facebook group.
And then there's also Juice Box podcast. But there's a Juice Box Facebook group. There's also South African Kids Diabetes. I can't remember what the name of that group is, but I belong to that as well. That's more local. So it's like more it's more accessible, especially if you don't have the resources that the guys overseas have. Then there's also different YouTube people. One
Why are
of
you
the
frowning your face? I'm
no,
a
I'm like
YouTube
I'm
person.
thinking. No, I'm just trying. I'm trying to think. How do I call them like respectfully? That's what I was thinking. Like,
Okay.
because I think YouTube people is not like it's not giving them the respect that they deserve,
Okay.
especially given how much they help me. There's this guy called the name of his YouTube channel is called Diapers, and he basically goes through the different types of technologies.
All right. So it's the YouTube guys, and then I just wanted to find out if you wanted to give any endocrinologists any airtime. No, not at this point.
No.
Okay. But I mean, ideally, it is a condition that should be managed if it's in a child by a pediatrician in conjunction with an endocrinologist.
Oh, you want me to speak about the like who exists?
Well, or the one that you trust, or the
I
one.
really like my endocrinologist.
Okay, then it's fine. Let's
Yeah.
leave it there. Let's leave it there. So thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
Happy belated birthday to him.
Yeah.
Hope to see him soon, and strength on the rest of the journey. I think he's gonna be fine. I mean, he is fine already, but I think that this is just gonna be just one of those other things for him. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for watching and listening. And please don't forget to subscribe, like, share. You don't know who might benefit from listening to such a conversation.